I never thought I would find myself in a position to share something so personal, but I feel compelled to open up about what has happened in my life. My world has been completely upended, and I'm at a loss for where to turn for guidance and support. Here's my story. My wife, Anna, engaged in an affair with a wealthy investor, and her justification for it was that it was part of her personal finance learning journey. To provide some context, let me take you back to the beginning. Anna, who is 36, and I, at 39, have been together for 7 years, with 5 of those years spent in marriage. Like any couple, we have experienced our share of highs and lows, but I genuinely believed that our relationship was grounded in a solid foundation of trust and love. Both of us maintained regular jobs, and while we weren't affluent by any means, we were content and happy with our lives together. Around a year ago, Anna's interest in personal finance took an unexpected turn. What started as a casual interest soon evolved into a passionate pursuit. She began diving into a plethora of books, immersing herself in YouTube videos, and even attending various seminars on financial topics. As her partner, I was supportive of her newfound passion, viewing it as a positive step toward improving our financial well-being and securing a brighter future for both of us. To be candid, I have always had a minimal understanding of finance. My knowledge extends only to the basics of investing, such as mutual funds. Even my grasp of mutual funds is quite superficial. I haven't actively invested in them apart from a mandatory tax-saving scheme. My background is in marketing, and my exposure to finance is limited. For any tax-related matters and exemptions, I rely on tax consultants, which is something a lot of people do. With the rise of New Age finance influencers on social media, Anna's enthusiasm for finance only intensified. She became intent on understanding the stock market, cryptocurrency, and other investment avenues. While I have a basic understanding of the stock market, cryptocurrency was a completely different story, one that was far beyond my comprehension. Initially, I attempted to join Anna for a few virtual seminars to support her, but the concepts presented felt utterly foreign and complex to me. As time progressed, I noticed that Anna started spending an increasing amount of time with a wealthy investor she had met at one of those seminars. Let's call him Dylan. Anna described Dylan as a mentor who was guiding her through the complicated world of investing and wealth accumulation. The idea of mentorship, particularly in financial circles, has become prevalent, and Anna seemed eager to embrace this opportunity. Before long, Anna stopped contributing to our household expenses, asserting that her investments would ultimately secure our future. I took her at her word and continued handling all our household bills. Initially, I didn't think too much of it. However, as time went by, I began to feel unease about their relationship. Anna started devoting excessive hours to Dylan, often staying out late into the night to discuss her financial pursuits. Her excuse was that she was busy during the day with her job, and evenings were her only free time to dive into her passion. When I expressed my concerns, Anna reacted defensively, even ridiculing me for my lack of understanding regarding investments. She would say things like, "One day, I'll make us wealthy, and you'll regret doubting me." I was trying to support her in every way possible, but I felt increasingly sidelined. She insisted that I shouldn't question her late work sessions or her whereabouts, leading me to tread lightly and avoid interference, even as I perceived obvious red flags. As time passed, I noticed changes in her behavior. Anna began altering her wardrobe, favoring more revealing outfits. While I had never commented on her clothing choices before, I chose to keep quiet this time as well. However, her growing distance and neglect of our relationship prompted me to bring up my concerns. Once again, she dismissed my feelings, insisting that everything she was doing was for our future security. I should be supporting her instead of judging her choices. Gradually, the emotional toll began to weigh heavily on me, and I started to feel disconnected from her. I was exhausted from carrying the burden of our relationship alone. I kept hoping she would notice my change in demeanor and reach out, but that didn't happen. Instead, I found myself feeling increasingly isolated and questioning the very foundation of our marriage. She became increasingly absorbed in the world of investments, immersing herself in the details and complexities, almost as if I had vanished from her life entirely. Our relationship had devolved to the point where we were merely sharing a living space, housemates, in every sense of the word. Conversations were scarce, and we spoke only when absolutely necessary. After her day job, her evenings were consumed by seminars or mentorship classes that seemed to take precedence over everything else in her life. One evening, as I passed by the seminar hall where her finance mentor, Dylan, was supposedly teaching, an instinct prompted me to step inside and see what was happening. When I entered, I was met with a shocking realization: this was not the seminar I had expected. I approached the security personnel stationed at the entrance and inquired about the seminars organized by Dylan's company. They informed me that such events were not held frequently. In fact, the last one had occurred several months ago. As I exited the hall, I noticed a group of young men wearing t-shirts emblazoned with the finance influencer's name. Curiosity led me to strike up a conversation with them. They explained that they were actively promoting the finance masterclass that was available for enrollment. I took careful notes as they shared the details. It turned out that the influencer himself only conducted seminars every 2 to 3 months. Meanwhile, the mentorship classes were supposedly led by various mentors like Dylan, hosted in cafes rather than formal settings. They also clarified that the mentorship sessions were not held daily. Instead, they occurred weekly, specifically on Wednesdays, from 7 to 9 p.m. This newfound intel troubled me further, as Anna consistently came home after midnight, leaving little to no time for us to interact. The following day, I casually asked Anna if she had class that evening, to which she responded curtly, "I have classes every day." I chose not to challenge her at that moment, even though the information I had gathered contradicted her claim, particularly since that day was a Thursday and her classes were only supposed to meet on Saturdays. Later that evening, after completing my work, I decided to visit the cafe I had learned about. To my disbelief, I found her sitting intimately close to Dylan. Their body language spoke volumes. His hands were nestled around her waist, and he leaned in to whisper in her ear while his lips brushed against her cheek. My heart sank as I watched them exchange flirtatious glances, causing me to feel like an outsider in our own home. I remained at a distance, grappling with the situation and attempting to grasp what I was observing. In an effort to document the encounter, I pulled out my phone to record video clips, anticipating that she might later downplay what was happening. I stood there, capturing the moment as things escalated. Dylan was playfully teasing her, even licking her ear and engaging in other inappropriate behavior that made my stomach churn. I didn't stop recording until they were on the verge of kissing. It was at that moment that I finally approached and took a seat at their table, sitting directly opposite them. Anna seemed to freeze at my arrival, while Dylan appeared momentarily confused. I introduced myself as her soon-to-be ex-husband, which made Dylan chuckle as if the whole situation were amusing. Anna quickly offered to explain, and I urged her to do so, wanting to hear her side of the story. She claimed that they were engaged in a one-on-one mentoring session, which prompted me to respond sarcastically that it certainly seemed like he was providing some hands-on mentoring. Dylan, seemingly unfazed, laughed it off and got up from the table. I turned to Anna and bluntly asked if she had slept with him. To my utter shock, she admitted that they had, but she insisted it was part of an investment deal. Confusion clouded my mind as I tried to comprehend the reasoning behind such a statement. She attempted to justify her actions, claiming it was all tied to her personal finance education. Anna assured me that Dylan had guaranteed substantial financial returns once she completed the classes and fulfilled his requests. In disbelief, I pressed her for specifics on what those requests entailed, and she reluctantly confirmed that it did involve sleeping with him. I could sense the shame intertwined with her desperate attempts to save face. To test the waters further, I played along and asked if she had done it against her will. She clarified that it was consensual, which only ignited my anger further. I accused her of finding pleasure in the situation, and she insisted otherwise, arguing that it had only been a means to secure our future. My temper flared as I shouted at her, demanding to understand who had given her the right to take such extreme measures in the name of securing our future. I reminded her that I was more than capable of managing our lives without her questionable decisions. My outburst attracted the attention of nearby patrons, who turned to stare, making the already uncomfortable situation even more unbearable. After that, I stood up, leaving the cafe in a haze of frustration. Anna followed me outside, desperately attempting to grasp my arm in an effort to stop me. I shrugged her off coldly and told her she could continue her involvement with her mentor without me. Returning home, I felt utterly devastated and broken. The disbelief weighed heavily on my heart as the realization sank in. My trust in her had been completely shattered. It was painful to come to terms with the fact that she had hidden her infidelity behind the facade of pursuing an interest in personal finance. Just a few minutes after this heart-wrenching revelation, Anna walked back into our home. She boldly claimed that her connection with the other person was strictly for financial education, not pleasure. Overwhelmed by emotions, I found myself asking her to leave. She pleaded with me, insisting her actions were not rooted in betrayal. According to her, there were no romantic feelings involved, it was merely a business transaction. I listened, baffled by the idea that this was her definition of business. I reminded her that acquiring financial knowledge could be achieved without engaging intimately with anyone. There were countless resources available that didn't require such drastic measures. As my frustration mounted, she grew defensive and insisted that she would prove me wrong. She was determined to showcase her potential for success, claiming her intention to dive into influencer marketing. She criticized my understanding of early investing and predicted that I would retire with very little savings, relying solely on a state pension while she would rise to become a billionaire. The absurdity of her predictions left me speechless. I told her that while I respected her ambitions, they were not something I could support while she was in a relationship with me. With that, she packed her bags and left. 2 days later, on a Saturday, she returned. I was lounging on the couch, perusing some things online when she entered. Without any preamble, she stated that she wasn't there to apologize or beg but only to collect her remaining belongings. I chose to remain silent, allowing her to gather her things. As she drove away, her actions displayed a complete disregard for the emotional turmoil she had caused, prioritizing her affairs over the relationship we once shared. In the aftermath of this chaos, I began discussions with my attorney about starting the divorce process. I hoped for a smooth transition, anticipating that since we hadn't amassed significant assets, the proceedings would be relatively simple. Thankfully, there was no contentious property to argue over, and I looked forward to moving on. I would provide updates as things progressed. Now, regarding my divorce, there hasn't been much to report beyond the ongoing proceedings. Many people had pointed out the dubious nature of Anna's so-called pursuit of personal finance, suggesting that it resembled more of a scam than a legitimate educational endeavor. While I may not be a financial expert, I recognized a familiar pattern. When someone promises quick and substantial returns, it often signals something amiss. Earning money in reality is a demanding task that doesn't yield instant results. With the divorce now finalized last week, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It had gone as smoothly as I could have hoped. As mentioned, we didn't have significant assets. The condo we lived in was rented. Our incomes were fairly equal, and since she was the one who had been unfaithful, I wasn't responsible for paying alimony. We closed our joint accounts and divided what little money we had left. Fortunately, we didn't have any children. That would have added a layer of complexity that neither of us needed. I began to understand why many Americans are cautious about starting families given the unpredictability involved. That said, the decision to have children isn't as simple as it might appear. Even as I tried to move forward, remnants of her betrayal lingered in my mind. In an effort to downplay her actions, Anna had been telling people that I would come crawling back to her once she achieved wealth through her newfound mastery of personal finance strategies. To that, I could only wish her good luck. She also spread the narrative that our divorce stemmed from my insecurities around her ambitions, painting me as controlling and jealous. I bore those comments with as much grace as I could muster. In response, I shared the video I had recorded, capturing her affectionate moments with the other person. The look on her face was priceless, a telltale sign of her true colors. Friends we once shared quickly began to reassess their loyalties following the upheaval of recent events. The last I heard, she was living with her mother while navigating the complications of the divorce proceedings. It's disheartening to see that she exhibits no visible remorse for the turmoil she has caused in the lives of those around her. I am left uncertain about her motives. I can't tell if she is genuinely investing her time in studying personal finance and investing, or if that was merely a facade to justify her affair with AP. If she truly manages to get her finances sorted out, then good for her, but I have no interest in wealth that is attained through deceit and betrayal. In a bid to improve my own situation, I have recently immersed myself in a plethora of investment videos. While I might be jumping to conclusions, I feel confident there's an abundance of free online resources that would provide ample information for anyone starting out, making mentorship appear unnecessary at this stage. Right now, my primary goal is to distance myself from conversations that center around her. Engaging in those discussions has taken a toll on my mental well-being. To cope, I've reignited my passion for painting, channeling my emotions into creativity, and have also joined a fitness club to help shed some unwanted pounds. My focus has shifted towards healthy eating habits and cutting back on my alcohol consumption. I had indulged excessively during the tumultuous period before the divorce, which led to noticeable weight gain. Hello everyone, I have some intriguing news to share. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude for all the support and the valuable investment resources you've provided. They have been incredibly helpful. Many of you have pointed out that my initial findings weren't part of a legitimate finance class but rather a scam, and you were absolutely right. The highlight of this update is that Anna has now fallen victim to a scam herself. Remember the finance influencer who was conducting those seminars? It turns out he was nothing more than a fraudster, swindling people out of their hard-earned money with promises of significant returns. Anna had invested around 30% of her income into that scheme, fully expecting to see considerable gains. To make matters worse, I learned that she even sold some of her prized possessions, including her family heirloom diamond ring and her platinum necklace, to invest even more in this fraudulent scheme. It seems that all her aspirations have crumbled into nothingness and were based on sheer deception. The influencer is currently on the run, while his associates, including AP, have been taken into custody, and an investigation is actively underway. Once this news broke, Anna became the subject of ridicule among all those she had boasted to about her impending wealth. She had been flaunting her newfound knowledge and looking down on those who didn't possess the same investment savvy. Now, however, the tables have turned, and many of the individuals she once mocked are now gleefully poking fun at her. It's only natural that they would react this way. One of our mutual friends informed me that she has since blocked most of the people making jokes about her situation. She even deactivated her social media accounts, likely because she was being tagged in posts related to the finance influencer she had once endorsed. Given that she promoted him, it's no surprise that she finds herself in this predicament now. This situation serves as a poignant reminder of the dangers of counting your chickens before they hatch, something she had been recklessly doing this entire time. As for me, I have made substantial progress. I've successfully shed those extra pounds and am currently focusing on muscle training, which I find enjoyable. As I mentioned before, rekindling my passion for painting has been a fulfilling journey, providing a sense of purpose and joy in my life. I have not rushed into the dating scene just yet. It's not that I need to get over my past, but rather, I simply don't feel ready for that chapter. Things took a dramatic turn just last month, only a week after my last update. I had an unexpected visitor. It was Anna, and she looked utterly despondent. She explained that she had become a target of the same scam. It turns out AP and his fraudulent influencer boss had deceived hundreds of people, absconding to another country with their money. I inquired about the supposed arrest of AP based on my last update, only to learn that he, along with several other so-called mentors, had been closely associated with the influencer and managed to escape just before law enforcement caught up. The remaining team members were indeed apprehended, but the main culprits remain at large. I asked her point-blank if she was approaching me because AP had left her. She was adamant that wasn't the case. She maintained that she still loved me and expressed a desire to sit down and talk. I reminded her that we were divorced, which made any conversation seem pointless and futile in my eyes. Instead of conceding, she insisted that she had already faced her punishment by karma. She shared how she had lost a considerable amount of money and felt stripped of any respect. People were mocking her and ridiculing her, while I had seemingly emerged unscathed from the whole ordeal. What more could you want? She asked, her voice tinged with desperation. What did I want? I wanted peace. I had wished for her to be out of my life, and at that moment, I just wanted her out of my house. That was my sole desire. She continued to assert that now that I knew there was nothing between her and Dylan, we could potentially revive our relationship. She argued that if there had been anything significant between them, he would have taken her with him when he left. I firmly replied with a resounding no. I explained that he wouldn't have taken her along because he had too many other women like her around, all interested in learning quick and dubious money-making schemes. After all, he couldn't possibly take all his casual partners with him. That was simply impractical. She pressed on, asking me to reconsider reconciling, stating that she had never been emotionally involved with AP. She did admit, however, that she had been lured by the idea of making fast money. I made it clear again that reconciliation was off the table for me. By that point, I had moved on substantially, making her pleas fall on deaf ears. If she had begged for my forgiveness when her affair initially surfaced, it might have made me think twice, but after witnessing her true character, I no longer had the inclination to trust her again. The timing of her return felt suspicious to me. She only approached me after losing everything during our divorce proceedings. Throughout that painful process, she had shown no remorse, and now, it seemed unbelievable that she would come back seeking any form of connection. I informed her that I needed to leave for my fitness class and that it was time for her to go. She commented on how I looked much younger and fitter and inquired if I was dating someone new. I curtly responded that it was none of her business, which caused her to start crying and accuse me of being rude. I shot back that she should be grateful for my civility and even listening to her after everything she had done to me. I had once loved her deeply, but those feelings had long since faded. When I started to grow cold toward her, she eventually left, clearly affected by my indifference. A few days later, I received a call from her mother, who requested a meeting. I was curious about the urgency, and she mentioned it was something too significant for a phone conversation. So, we arranged to meet for coffee the next day. During our meeting, she offered an apology on behalf of Anna, her daughter. I embraced her, reassuring her that if it wasn't her fault, then she had nothing to apologize for. She had consistently been kind to me, particularly in contrast to Anna, and had never spoken ill of me during the divorce proceedings. Her mother asked if I would think about reconciling with Anna, expressing her deep regret for her daughter's actions. She was visibly upset, crying and showing signs of depression. She conveyed her fear that Anna might be in such a low state that she could even harm herself due to the financial losses she had incurred, including losing part of her monthly salary and some valuable items of jewelry. I was taken aback to learn about Anna's financial struggles because she had always been a saver, and I had assumed she had a substantial amount saved up, likely around $100,000. Losing that much money could certainly lead anyone to significant mental distress. I questioned how reconciling would actually help Anna cope with her depression stemming from her financial setbacks. Her mother argued passionately that Anna loved me deeply, and even in her dire situation, having me back in her life could bring her some level of happiness. Despite feeling a flicker of sympathy for Anna, my moment of doubt quickly faded. I reverted to my firm decision that taking her back was simply not an option. I expressed to her mother that I couldn't do it, that my feelings for Anna had vanished. This led to another round of crying and pleas for help, but I remained firm in my stance. I suggested that her daughter really needed therapy more than a husband, she needed professional help to navigate her struggles. While her mother was disappointed by my refusal, she ultimately understood my perspective. Another layer to Anna's distress could have stemmed from my own investment journey, which had continued to flourish in the wake of our separation. I began to seek out authentic finance YouTubers who played a pivotal role in enhancing my understanding of personal finance and investing, both from a macroeconomic perspective and on the fundamental level. This newfound knowledge has been instrumental in the growth of my investment portfolio. To my surprise, I have already realized a significant profit from my investments. Currently, I have ventured into both the stock market and the bond market. However, I have yet to fully engage with cryptocurrency trading, as it remains an area that feels overwhelming and unfamiliar to me. I prefer to stay within my comfort zone rather than rush into areas where I lack experience. My approach has been deliberate, I am taking it one step at a time. Through my learning journey in the stock market, I have come to firmly believe that accumulating wealth is not an overnight endeavor. It demands patience and a certain level of bravery. I hope that by navigating this experience, I will emerge stronger and more knowledgeable in financial matters. On another note, when it comes to dating, I feel that I am still not ready to engage in that aspect of my life. Now, let's transition into another compelling narrative. I'm a 40-year-old woman, and my family background includes my parents, a 63-year-old father and a 60-year-old mother, who have been happily married for 43 years. I come from a large family with 6 siblings, an older sister who is 42, another sister who is 38, and a third sister who is 34, along with 3 brothers aged 20, 20, and 18. I have been with my husband, who is currently 39, since we were both 15 years old. My life took a significant turn when I became pregnant at 17, prompting my husband and me to move in with my parents. I gave birth to my daughter, who is now 22, and we tied the knot shortly after I turned 18. Shortly after our wedding, my paternal grandfather passed away, leaving behind a modest house to my father. This house was built by my grandparents right next to my parents' home upon their retirement. My parents generously offered us the chance to live in this inherited house, informing us that it would eventually become my inheritance. My husband and I accepted this arrangement without hesitation, and we went on to have 3 more children, 2 sons aged 20 and 14, and a daughter who is currently 5. I am also 7 months pregnant with our last child, a boy expected to arrive in April. Until recently, I believed I was in a strong and stable marriage. We enjoyed intimacy more than twice a week, had regular date nights, exchanged thoughtful gifts, and rarely quarreled. However, everything changed abruptly on New Year's Eve when I unexpectedly returned home early from a girls' trip with friends. Walking into my bedroom, I was met with the shocking sight of my mother engaged in sexual relations with my husband. The visceral reaction of my mother yelling for me to leave their bedroom only intensified the shock. To make matters worse, my eldest daughter was home, preparing for a party, and she witnessed the chaos as my mother rushed out of our bedroom in a state of undress, only to slam the door behind her in my daughter's face. My daughter was devastated by the scene and immediately went to my sister's house for refuge. In the midst of emotional turmoil, I urged my daughter not to share what she had seen until I had a chance to speak with my husband. When I confronted him about the situation, he admitted to me that my mother had seduced him when we were just 18 and living in their house together. He confessed that they had been engaging in unprotected intimacy at least once a month ever since, which stretched beyond the duration of our marriage. As I pieced together this timeline, I was horrified to realize that my twin brothers and youngest brother could potentially be his biological children. In a state of panic, I immediately called my father and asked him to come over without my mother. When he arrived, my husband confessed everything in front of my father, who was utterly devastated, having been high school sweethearts with my mother. The commotion reached a fever pitch, with my mother's anguished screams echoing from her house as this painful truth was laid bare. In the aftermath of this revelation, I decided to confide in my older sister, and we both agreed that the best course of action would be to host a party for our entire extended family, inviting my ex's family as well. At the party, I organized for my 22-year-old daughter to take all the kids down to the basement to watch a movie. This left only the adults and siblings present to hear my chilling account of the betrayal. The majority of my family expressed their support for me, with the notable exception of my 3 youngest siblings, my 38-year-old sister, and my ex's family, who labeled me as an a-hole for making our family troubles public. As news of the situation continued to spread, my mother's best friend, who holds a prominent position in my childhood church, reached out to me to confirm the disturbing story. Consequently, my mother was removed from her role as the children's pastor at the church. My mother has since claimed that I have irreparably damaged her reputation and life as a result of my actions. Life has taken a dramatic turn since my father insisted that my mother leaves their shared home. She is now living with my 38-year-old sister, seeking refuge and support amid the turmoil. My father has made it clear that before he considers any potential reconciliation with her, he requires a DNA test for our 3 youngest boys. This request has added an additional layer of complexity to an already strained situation. The tests have revealed a shocking truth: the twins are, in fact, the biological children of my husband, a revelation that has fundamentally altered our family dynamics. In light of this discovery, I made the difficult decision to kick my husband out of our home, and he is now residing with his parents. This situation has left me feeling unanchored, but my father and I are currently engaged in discussions about my potential move into his much larger house. His plan involves selling my grandfather's house to provide me with the funds necessary to purchase a new home elsewhere. This would allow me to create a fresh start, free from the memories and the emotional weight of my past life with my husband. My husband is understandably outraged and furious over these developments. The revelation that he is now going to be a father of 7 children instead of 5 has been a significant blow to him. Additionally, with the division of marital assets looming ahead, I am entitled to half of his HVAC business, which he started just a few years ago. I played a crucial role in the establishment of that company, dedicating time and effort to manage the office while temporarily stepping back from my teaching career to ensure it got off the ground. Under the laws in our state, all marital assets, including businesses, are subject to equal division upon divorce. The house, still owned in my father's name, means my husband will receive no financial benefit from its sale, and my mother will not gain anything either, as inherited assets are exempt from division in divorce proceedings. Furthermore, my mother is unlikely to receive any alimony due to our state's existing laws, which do not follow a no-fault divorce model. As the days go by, it has been over a month since this upheaval began, and I find myself grappling with deep feelings of bitterness and anger, particularly directed toward my mother. Her hypocrisy is quite striking. While she has shamed my family for our actions, she herself has been engaged in far worse behavior. My anger is also focused on my ex-husband, who was involved with both my mother and me at the same time. There are painful reminders that he came to our bed shortly after being with her and that he managed to impregnate her less than a week after I found out I was pregnant. What initially appeared to be a shared joyous occasion of pregnancy quickly turned into a nightmare, especially knowing that she was carrying my children's half-siblings. This situation has thoroughly shattered my trust in men and their capacity for faithfulness. To protect my interests, I have already secured a capable lawyer from the firm that previously handled our financial matters, with my father assisting in covering the costs. Unfortunately, the fallout has not only affected me, two of my twin brothers, one of my sisters, and even my ex's entire family have cut off contact with me and my minor children. As a result, my children have lost almost all connections to their grandparents, save for my father, two uncles, and an aunt on my side, along with my husband's three brothers. The emotional toll of these circumstances has manifested physically, leading to the development of ulcers and digestive issues. I'm planning to see a doctor soon to address these health concerns. Additionally, I've been attending therapy sessions since the first week of January. I have even extended an offer for family therapy to my two adult children, although they are currently in individual therapy. My 14-year-old daughter is aware of the divorce and the underlying reasons, and understandably, she harbors anger toward her father, which complicates my efforts to send her to his place on weekends. While I believe she is old enough to voice her opinions, I also want to protect her relationship with her father. I've made it clear to my children that it's perfectly okay to love their dad, regardless of how he has hurt me. However, my two eldest children have chosen to cut off contact with him entirely, a decision I support. The true reasons behind the divorce will remain hidden from my younger two until they reach their teenage years, and there is a mutual agreement to refrain from disclosing anything until they can fully comprehend the circumstances. Reflecting on how I remained oblivious to the ongoing affair has been painful. My husband confessed to me that there was an inappropriate closeness between him and my mother at her church office, in their cars, at a motel, and during their encounters at our house. They began engaging openly in infidelity at his office shortly after I returned to teaching, frequently using our home when my father was away on business trips or when I was out of town. This revelation has left lasting scars on my heart and altered the fabric of our family forever. The most distressing aspect of my current situation stems from the sheer coincidence of returning home a day earlier than planned from a trip, prompted by severe pregnancy discomfort. It was during this unexpected early return that I stumbled upon the affair that had been unfolding right under my nose. The realization that my husband and my children's grandmother would have likely continued this betrayal had I not caught them is a source of deep emotional turmoil for me. It's heart-wrenching to think that those I trusted most showed such little regard for the effect their actions would have on our family unit. This betrayal is particularly difficult to come to terms with because it involves my own mother. The painful truth that she could not only betray me but also engage in this deceitful behavior for an extended period without any concern for the consequences is incredibly challenging. The situation unraveled dramatically, leaving both of us exposed to the harsh realities of their actions. Compounding this emotional distress, during one of our mediated conversations, my husband confirmed that the affair began as a result of my upsetting him. Instead of communicating his feelings to me, he chose to vent to my mother during a private moment. This exchange of emotions ultimately led to a level of intimacy between them that I never anticipated. He openly admitted that he enjoyed this infidelity and pursued her further. To hear him say he would have divorced me if he thought he could keep her, and that he found her better in bed than I am, was a blow I never saw coming. His words were not just a betrayal but a haunting reminder that I was merely a placeholder in his life. As I grapple with the waves of betrayal and pain, I have also attempted to navigate the complexities of our divorce. Unfortunately, my efforts to establish a mediated divorce became even more convoluted when I learned from my ex, through his legal representatives, that he doubts the paternity of the baby I am currently carrying. He demands a DNA test immediately after the birth, declaring he will not support a child he believes isn't his. To add insult to injury, he has alleged that I engaged in multiple affairs throughout our marriage and that I was complicit in his ongoing infidelity, using it as a pretext for my own supposed unfaithfulness. The irony is that none of these allegations are true, yet, there is a part of me that almost wishes they were, for that would simplify this painful divorce process. My attorney has cautioned me to prepare for an arduous and contentious divorce characterized by my ex's ruthless tactics, further complicating an already heartbreaking situation. I am also addressing questions that arose in previous discussions regarding my family's resemblance. My twin brothers bear a striking familial resemblance to my mother's side, particularly my uncle and grandfather, while they do not resemble my father. Interestingly, they do not bear a strong resemblance to my husband either. In contrast, my son is the only child who visibly takes after my soon-to-be ex-husband. However, my 14-year-old daughter has inherited my husband's nose and jawline. On the fateful day everything came crashing down, I was undeniably furious. However, my father talked me down from that initial rage, urging me to consider the well-being of my unborn child and my other children. He reminded me to think before acting, especially in a manner that could deprive them of their parents. This parental wisdom spared my kids from experiencing the brunt of my anger in the following days. Despite this, I have carried a lingering anger, which ultimately led me to host a revenge party as a misguided attempt to cope with the betrayal. In retrospect, I wish I had confided in my twin brothers about my mother's infidelity in a more private manner, rather than making the news public. My relationship with my sister, who is now 38 and aligns herself with our mother, has been tenuous for years. We have not gotten along since high school, and while I question her reasons for her stance in this matter, I'm not particularly invested in her perspective on the situation. My twin brothers are understandably upset that I disclosed the news publicly. According to my father, they are currently in therapy to process these revelations, and he has suggested that they may simply be misdirecting their anger toward me, the messenger. Although I have not explicitly stated that my ex could potentially be their father, they are astute enough to do the math, recognizing that they are the same age as my son, who is younger than the duration of the affair. My father had a candid conversation with them, making clear that the proposed DNA test was meant to address issues of infidelity, not to disown them. He reassured them that, to him, they are his sons regardless of the biological circumstances. In the back of my mind, I can't shake the feeling that my egg donor and my soon-to-be ex did not wait until he turned 18 to explore their closeness. The complexity of emotions, relationships, and the impending reality of my divorce continue to weigh heavily on me as I navigate this distressing chapter of my life. I am delegating the responsibility of addressing and managing the ongoing issues surrounding my parents' divorce proceedings to my dad. He feels equipped to handle this delicate situation, and I trust that he will navigate it with the necessary care and consideration. While I have given this matter some thought, I have also developed contingency plans should my parents decide to cohabitate again, despite the current tensions. However, my attorney isn't convinced that my ex would make such a reckless decision, especially given the increasingly hostile atmosphere that has characterized their divorce process. Additionally, I want to clarify a detail I previously overlooked: my husband is actually just 4 months younger than me. My birthday is in December, while his falls in April, which means he will soon celebrate his 40th birthday. It's worth noting that we were classmates from kindergarten all the way through high school, thus, the age difference isn't as significant as some might assume. As I navigate this challenging time, my primary focus remains on my pregnancy, my children, and finding a way to move forward positively. I may provide updates once the divorce proceedings are finalized, but I want to take a moment to sincerely thank everyone for their unwavering support and valuable advice throughout this ordeal. In a recent telephone conversation with my aunt, who is also the sister of my egg donor, some surprising information came to light. She mentioned that there is a history of infidelity on our family's side, particularly involving my egg donor's family. My grandmother had a long-standing affair, but interestingly, she and my grandfather eventually reconciled. My aunt herself has faced her share of emotional affairs while remaining married to my uncle. During our discussion, she even attempted to explain my mother's affair through a genetic lens, suggesting it could be hereditary. I found this line of reasoning so laughable that I couldn't help but burst into laughter, which unfortunately led to my aunt feeling upset with me for not siding with my egg donor or accepting her justifications for cheating. Both my father and my lawyer have encouraged me to consider my aunt's perspective more thoughtfully, especially leading up to our custody meeting set for early March. As I contemplate their advice, I also felt the need to ask my aunt about the so-called infidelity gene, questioning which of my mother's children it might have been passed on to. I couldn't help but ponder how my grandmother managed to instill this supposed trait in both of her daughters. Reflecting on this conversation, it's clear that my humor at my aunt's expense is likely a source of her current irritation. To be frank, my sympathy for those who cheat has significantly diminished following this insightful update. In past updates, my ex accused me of infidelity and went so far as to demand a DNA test for our unborn son. My aunt's revelations about the infidelity within our egg donor's family seem to reinforce my ex's unfounded accusations while attempting to rationalize them as a genetic predisposition. My dad and I have been advised by our lawyers to meet with my egg donor for closure and to discuss the circumstances that led to her decisions. Last night, I had a meeting with my egg donor, my dad, and our respective lawyers. During this session, my egg donor confessed that while she knew her actions were wrong, she found the attention she received intoxicating and enjoyed the thrill of her affair. She openly admitted to continuing her relationship with my dad because she valued the financial security and the carefree lifestyle it provided her. Shockingly, she revealed that she intentionally pursued physical encounters with my dad after being with my ex, with the intention of possibly passing off any resulting child as my dad's. Moreover, she expressed a twisted sense of satisfaction in knowing that my ex might have enjoyed those moments more than he did with me. In a surprising turn, she informed us that she would be moving in with my ex into his new residence and extended an invitation for my children to live with them as well. The twins, having visited her only once since the affair was uncovered, made it clear that they do not have fond feelings for my ex and refuse to acknowledge him as their father. Despite this, she seemed optimistic that they would eventually warm up to the idea once she was married to him and that she would reclaim her family that way. Her delusion struck me as laughable, and I expressed my belief that she needs professional help. Furthermore, I made it clear that I would be pursuing a restraining order to prevent her from having any access to my minor children. In response, she labeled me as jealous and ungrateful, insisting that I should feel grateful for her not having terminated the pregnancy and for not expelling me from the family when I became pregnant. She even had the audacity to suggest that I should appreciate her efforts in keeping my husband satisfied and content when I was unable to do so, all of which might have prevented him from seeking a divorce. Leaving me as a broken and damaged single mother, my life took a tumultuous turn when my mother confessed to my father about her struggles with postpartum depression following my birth. This revelation, however, was met with indifference from my dad. He chose to ignore her pain rather than offer the support she desperately needed. As a result, she felt isolated, which she believed justified her bitterness towards me and contributed to her multiple affairs. She admitted to engaging in these affairs starting just 6 months after I was born, continuing until New Year's Eve of the following year. It was alarming to hear that she stated she would still be involved with those other men had I not exposed her actions. This troubling history raises significant doubts regarding my family structure. My older half-sister, who is 38, and my younger half-sister, at 34, may not even be my father's biological children. My dad's reaction to this revelation has been one of devastation and anger, yet we managed to document her confession in front of our lawyers. Following this, my father reached out to my siblings to inform them of the truth. Unsurprisingly, my 38-year-old half-sister was already aware of the situation. My mother had confided in her about both affairs when the twins were born, indicating that she had a strong suspicion that my dad might not be their biological father. Shockingly, she chose to keep this information from us, further complicating our family dynamics. My father is more heartbroken by this betrayal than he is about the end of his relationship with my mother, and I doubt their relationship will ever fully recover from this. Meanwhile, my older sister's reaction is puzzling. She seems unfazed. In contrast, my younger sister has declined the offer for a paternity test, affirming that my father will always be her dad, a decision that my dad respects and accepts without question. As a protective measure for my children, I've informed my ex-husband through my lawyer of my intention to file for an order of protection. This is to ensure that my kids are not subjected to the chaos of being around my mother if she is at his place. Neither my ex nor my mother has taken steps to secure new housing, leading me to suspect that my mother might be planning to move in with my ex-in-laws. I have no desire for my children to be exposed to that unstable environment. My ex has yet to respond, but frankly, I'm not concerned about his feelings on the matter. My family and our lawyers are fully aware of the social media posts detailing the situation, and it appears that my ex and my mother are at a significant disadvantage in the divorce proceedings. In a somewhat petty move, I have chosen to leave those posts up, relishing in the discomfort they bring to both of them. They are now facing judgment not only from our local community but potentially from the wider world as well. Additionally, I have received permission from my younger sister to share the events of last night, while I remain indifferent toward my 38-year-old sister's opinion. In terms of personal updates, I gave birth to my son in early April, and I am grateful to report that he is healthy and that I faced no complications during the delivery. By the end of March, I had successfully obtained temporary full physical and legal custody of my children. Recently, my 14-year-old daughter approached me with the idea of family therapy with her dad. Initially, I was resistant to this notion, hesitant to engage in any further entanglement with my ex. However, I eventually recognized my daughter's need to process everything that has transpired and agreed to participate for her sake. During the therapy sessions, I gained valuable insights into the complicated relationship between my ex and my mother through the assignments the therapist provided. My ex shared additional details that I believe to be truthful, including a shocking account of how my mother allegedly attempted to seduce him well before either of us were of legal age. This grooming process allegedly began when my mother took the lead of the youth group, and both of them were still quite young, me at 15 and him just a few months shy of turning 15. My mother supposedly began by offering private counseling under the pretext that he needed it, leading to secret interactions that culminated in a kiss while he was still 14. This secret relationship continued until he turned 18, coinciding with the time around the birth of their first child. My mother then encouraged my ex to date me as a means to maintain their connection without raising any suspicions. Learning this truth left me feeling utterly devastated, as it became clear that my entire relationship was constructed on a foundation of lies. It shattered any illusions I had that my husband genuinely loved me. Yet, amid this devastation, there was also a sense of relief in knowing that I had played no part in their affair. I was unwittingly caught in a web of deceit that I had no control over. The reason I find this situation entirely believable stems from the experiences I had when he first asked me out. At that point in my life, I was required to seek my parents' permission before entering into any dating relationship, a strict rule that was in place during my teenage years. The guideline was clear: no one could date until they turned 16. Ironically, my mother seemed to support the idea of me dating him, or at least that was the impression I gathered at the time. Shortly after he celebrated his 15th birthday, we began our relationship, which perfectly aligned with the timeline set by my parents' rules. Interestingly, they did not engage in full sexual intercourse until he reached the age of 18, which I suppose was seen as a sort of birthday gift from my mother. Fast forward to the present, my daughter, who is now 22, and my son, aged 20, have both chosen to cut off communication with him completely. This is a situation he has come to accept, fully understanding that there might always be a distance between them and no possibility of re-establishing a relationship. On a more positive note, the twins and I have found common ground and have reconciled our differences, which has brought some peace to our family dynamic. Turning now to my relationship with my mother, commonly referred to as my egg donor, I made the decision to sever ties with both her and my grandmother following a particularly troubling conversation with my aunt. I was tired of my aunt's relentless attempts to guilt-trip me into reaching out to my egg donor. To make matters worse, my grandmother has been facing her own set of challenges, including early signs of dementia and senility. While I could overlook her derogatory comments about my egg donor, some of her other remarks and behaviors have only added unnecessary stress to my already complicated life. As for my labor and delivery experience, it was my two elder sisters, aged 34 and 42, who took the reins in planning the entire process. My ex was aware of the arrangements. However, I made it clear that I preferred him not to be present in the hospital until after I had given birth. I wanted to be in a better frame of mind before he met our son. He agreed to this arrangement. When the day finally came and I went into labor, my 34-year-old sister took my 14-year-old and 5-year-old children to her home, while my 42-year-old sister stayed by my side in the delivery room. Things took an unexpected turn when my 14-year-old child reached out to my ex for something they needed from school, as he was still on the official pickup list, even if that status was about to change. My ex was supposed to drop off whatever it was at my sister's house. Although my egg donor accompanied him when he took the call, he declined to let her come along, as I preferred my children to be kept away from her influence. However, she decided to follow him in her car to the store and then to my sister's house, where a dramatic scene unfolded. She had a temper tantrum on the front lawn, which escalated into my ex choosing to break up with her, citing that the drama she brought into their lives was simply not worth it anymore. This breakup triggered a violent reaction from her. She physically attacked him and began vandalizing items in my sister's yard, prompting the police to be called to the scene. My egg donor was arrested for domestic violence that day. In light of her instability, my ex, my sister, and I all obtained orders of protection against her. After that incident, my ex decided to relocate to an apartment near his HVAC company to start anew. Currently, my 14-year-old daughter has decided not to forgive him and has made it clear that she does not wish to be around him at this time, leaving only my 5-year-old to visit him occasionally. He comes by my dad's house to spend time with her, usually on one weeknight and one weekend evening, while I take my other children and twin brothers out for dinner. We have managed to establish communication through a custody app, and we plan to revisit the custody arrangements come June. I have every intention of pursuing full legal and physical custody until my ex can demonstrate that he has undergone the necessary therapy and treatment. I still harbor intense negative emotions towards my ex for what I endured from the age of 15 until just recently. However, my feelings towards my egg donor run even deeper. The harm she caused to all of us is hard to overlook. Despite my strong emotions, I do possess a certain level of sympathy for my ex and genuinely want him to recover for the sake of my younger children. On a different note regarding the ongoing divorce proceedings, my ex has agreed to a mediated uncontested divorce. As part of this arrangement, I will be receiving half of everything, including the business we built together. I have decided to sell my shares to one of his employees who is interested in becoming a partner. My ex is satisfied with this arrangement, and I am eager to finally sever all ties with him. In a related development, my father successfully sold my previous house without even listing it on the market, thanks to our realtor's connection with a family that was looking for a new home. I have recently begun the search for houses located about 45 minutes away from where my dad currently lives. This decision comes amidst the ongoing turmoil surrounding our egg donor, who has seemingly gone into hiding ever since the twins made it abundantly clear that they refuse to live with her and want nothing to do with her. The situation worsened following her arrest, which only escalated her attempts to guilt trip and blame the children for her circumstances. Currently, she is contesting the divorce from my dad and has restricted all communication to interactions through her attorney, further complicating matters. Regarding my 38-year-old sister, she has undergone a significant reality check during this tumultuous time. During a lengthy 45-minute conversation, our mother confronted her, criticizing her for not supporting the egg donor by helping her secure bail. This conversation revealed that my sister has been grappling with fertility challenges, something that I was previously unaware of due to our lack of communication. These struggles have understandably taken a toll on her mental health, resulting in increased levels of stress and anxiety, as well as a decline in her self-esteem. Unfortunately, this vulnerability made her an easy target for manipulation by our egg donor, who, in an attempt to regain her influence, offered my sister some positive attention. However, when my sister ultimately chose to decline the request to bail our egg donor out, as she preferred to save her funds for another round of IVF with her partner, she became more aware of the manipulation at play. This realization prompted her to reach out to me, and we have been gradually rebuilding our relationship. It's encouraging to see her supporting me as I navigate these complex issues. Additionally, she has resumed communication with our dad, which brings me relief for his sake. It allows them both the opportunity to reconnect during this challenging period. On a more personal note, I want to share the wonderful news about my son. We conducted a DNA test a few weeks before his birth, confirming that he is indeed my ex-companion's child. This revelation has filled my life with immense joy and delight, particularly as I witnessed the bond between him and my other children. With the unwavering support of my dad and siblings, I am managing to get through this challenging time, and I remain optimistic that they will continue to be there for me as I move forward. I hold hope that, eventually, I will be able to address my ex without carrying the burdens of anger and bitterness that have been weighing on me. Understanding the trauma he has endured due to our egg donor's actions helps me find a path toward healing. I genuinely believe that I will be okay. As I conclude this update, I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude for all the kindness, love, and support I have received throughout this ordeal.